So I'm a psychologist. I work with neurodivergent people, chronically ill people, people with complex PTSD, people experiencing grief and going through major life changes. I use parts therapy and I use acceptance and commitment therapy. And so I wanted to meet with as many people as I could from the practice to talk about their experiences with grief. So Allie and I made sure that we found some time so that we could talk. I'll let Allie introduce herself and then we can kind of go from there.
Hi, I'm Allie with the Bounce and Birch here. I am the resident hypnotist. I offer traditional hypnotherapy, such as wellness hypnotherapy, and then also a more spiritual approach with past life regression, light between lives, Akashic Records journeys, and beyond quantum healing. These modalities can help with all forms of the subconscious healing, and it's an incredible modality to help with all kinds of difficulties that we experience throughout our lives and past lives, as it were.
Yeah. So, wherever you'd like to start, Allie, I just wanted to hear more about or hear about your experiences with grief, be it physical loss of a person, of like an animal, could be physical loss of like home or having to move. It could be loss of a relationship that was important to you, but the person's still alive. That's just a couple different types of grief. Grief is very expansive and very complex. So I'm mainly interested in just like when you hear the word grief, what comes up for you, what experiences. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, grief is an experience of loss, a deep, painful um, process of loss. I mean, you have when we think about grief, I think mostly people think about losing somebody or a pet, something that was close to them. In my own life, I've lost people very close to me. I've lost pets, and then I've also grieved what could have been and what would have been. I've grieved job loss, an ending of a career, and you know the feelings are similar, but also at the same time they're different. You know that a lot of those things are probably not coming back. Obviously in the case of a death, they're not coming back, but you know, like for a job loss, for example, it ends up being probably a better thing for you. It's in the process, that particular job may not be coming back, but what it fulfilled for you uh, may come back better and tenfold. That makes sense.
That makes sense. So like it sounds like in your experience, like acknowledging the grief for what it is, while also allowing for the possibility that that loss doesn't end there. Like the loss itself doesn't end. Yeah, it's yeah. Like I don't know how to explain that. I'm I can feel things, but I can't put them into words. I don't know. I don't want to know if I want to say that it opens doors necessarily because I don't want to like cheapen the loss, but that it can like give way to something else.
Absolutely. And I don't think that you're not acknowledging that because in the moment when we're in it, it's hard to see like, oh, this is going to lead to new things in my life because you have to feel those feelings, you have to experience it, and you're just incapable, I think, of thinking of something brighter. And I think one of the worst things that you can hear when you've lost somebody or something close to you is, oh, they're in a better place. Well, in your mind, when you hear that, it's like you think the better place is with me here right now because I'm in this incredible amount of pain. how can that possibly be true? Um, so, but then as time goes by and you learn and you move through that grief, you experience like, you know, a different perspective of it. In the case of a job loss, you can look back and go, yeah, that I was able to take those skills and now I get to move them into this other thing that has where I'm learning new skills. With a person, you get to take with you the memories. With a pet, you get to take back those memories, and even maybe share them with a new pet and take the knowledge that you had with the last one, and you know, with training and like, oh, I've been here before, you know, now I can use this to with this new journey with this pet or what have you. So it when you're in the moment, it's impossible to think of what the future could bring. But once you're past it and you see that perspective, you can have comfort in that love that you shared from whatever kind of loss it was.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with that. Are there particular losses that you'd like to share about? And again, like I said before, we started recording, I don't want you to share anything that doesn't feel comfortable for like the public to know. And I don't want you to feel forced to like disclose any experiences or emotions that don't that feel private.
Yeah,
Um, but also I
I
want you space to talk about your losses
I
if you
appreciate that. Yes, I've lost a number of people close to me in my life. You know, I'm in my mid 40s now, so um, the my very first loss wasn't until I was in my 30s, but that was the loss of my soul dog. Um, that was the probably the most painful up to that point in my life. She was I got her when I was 19 years old. Her name was Molly, and you know, she was with me from living at my parents' house, moving out on my own for the first time, meeting my husband. Um, he actually had her help him propose to me, and you know, she was there when we had both of our kids. So she was there for all those major parts of our life, and it was extremely difficult to let her go. And she passed in a tragic way, you know. And I don't think it matters how they passed because it's painful no matter what. But you know, I went to work and I didn't know that when I left, it was the last time I was going to see her. And so that is something that, you know, sticks with you. So, you know, you think about that, you know, and she passed on a very a day that sticks out in my mind. So every time it was March 14th, which is Pi Day 3.14, you know, so every Pi Day I think about her, you know, and so it's you think about that loss. But then also I love when my kids talk about, you know, my daughter's first word was Molly, saying her name. So, you know, that's a gift that we always get to take with us. So, um, the next biggest loss in my life was my dad passing. He passed when I was about 35, I think I was. And you know, I'm an only child, so dealing with his loss alone was incredibly painful and incredibly difficult. And he died in a tragic way. It was unexpected heart attack, and um, you know, I was left picking up the pieces. You know, and we had a good relationship, but I was in the process of kind of establishing some boundaries at the time, and we weren't on speaking terms. So that was an additional layer of grief for me. So that was working through that was a very long process, but uh, some incredible things happened in my life that I'm happy to share another time. But it's actually led me to where I am now. So if you can believe that. So in that pain came something wonderful on the other side. So, and I think that's important to say. Even with Molly, I learned a lot about her, and she brought me some beautiful things. In fact, um, when she passed, my dad wanted to, uh, when the time was right, he said he would help us get another dog, to kind of help us with that, and because he loved her just as much as we did. He had a coffee mug that said, "Ask me about my grand dog," that he was so proud of. Um, and eventually, we did get another dog that was like Molly, same breed, Australian Shepherd. And you know, in the interim, my dad had passed, and so it was difficult when we lost Lucy. That was the Australian Shepherd that we got after Molly. Um, and that was doubly hard when she passed because it was like losing that connection with my dad. So,
Yeah.
and then just recently, in the last few months, just in November of last year, we lost my mother-in-law. And, you know, I know a lot of people make jokes about their in-laws. But I think I was one of the lucky ones. I had a wonderful mother-in-law, and she was the true matriarch of that family. She kept us all together, and we're still navigating that grief. You know, It's different being on the other side. It's not my mother, but she was like a mom to me. But watching my husband grieve, the woman that gave him life is incredibly heartbreaking. And we're coming up on you know finishing up the last of the things, like when there's a loss, and the kids are left picking up the pieces. There's nobody talks about kind of having to everything that it entails, from the funeral stuff to tying up all those loose ends at the very end. And it's almost like you're constantly reminded that this person is gone. And you know we're we sold her house and it's closing in the next few weeks, and so that's kind of for them the last connection. And so we're kind of struggling with that right now, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. You're right. People don't talk much about the logistics of loss. It is
Yeah.
like especially with a person and a parent, like what they leave behind and having to. I know the most analogous thing I have, or the most like similar experience, is watching my dad go through the loss of his father. And there's all the siblings, like there was my dad, had the grief over the loss of his dad, but also the grief over the fact that his dad assigned the oldest, which was my dad's sister, as like I forget what the word is, but like the like head of the estate, like the person who has to deal with all this stuff. And I think that was very painful to my dad because my dad visited his dad the most. They live very close by, and he was there. He was there when my grandfather died. Like he was next to him. And so I think that there was like that pain and feeling of like invalidation or inadequacy. Those are assumptions that he hasn't told me the exact feelings, but he's talked about it bothering him. And then also there was fighting amongst siblings about what should go where and who should do what. And the person who was supposed to be handling all of this was not doing so in a time efficient manner. And so it dragged out years. And I think that in a way that really prevents people from being able to grieve. Because it's just there's this continued like again dealing with logistics, and so you can't really let yourself fall into the pain, like in the depth of the emotions of grief, because there are tasks to do related to this. And in order to be able to do those tasks successfully, you have to be able to shove down the parts of yourself that have feelings about the fact that this person's no longer here. Um,
Yes.
yeah, it's, I mean, And then I think too, like you sharing your experience of being the spouse of someone who has lost an important parent, but also this being like her, she's a kind of was a parent to you too. So it's just there's so much complexity within how grief can be experienced and often how it is. I don't there's in the field of psychology there's like the coined term complex grief. I, I don't think there's anything other than complex grief. And, like I'm not just saying that to be like soundbitey or whatever. Like I really I've never encountered a grief that's just like, oh yeah, I'm sad and depressed and miss this person and I can go through the motions of grieving them and integrate the loss into my life. Like it's never smooth. It's always complex. There's always nuance. Yeah.
Right, absolutely. And to your point about, things dragging on, there's that for years I used to tell everybody, oh, I don't want a funeral, I don't want a memorial service. I want you to take the money that you would spend and have a fabulous vacation, take a picture with me, and I'll be there in spirit. And it wasn't until one day somebody said to me, the funeral's not really for you or about you. It's for all the people that you're leaving behind.
Yeah.
It's for them to move through that grief. And that was an incredible perspective because, yes, you're right. Having to push down all those parts of us that are like focused on, okay, I gotta sell the house. I got to, pay off their debts or whatever it is. And that's if things are organized. I've seen stories where people haven't been able to find important paperwork. And it just, you have to set that grief aside. And those memorial services, those funerals really give the space to do that. Um, but that's not the end of it. Like you don't get one day to grieve. It can last many years. I mean, my dad has been passed for 11 years, and there are days where it still feels like the day he passed, and I sit and I cry, and you know, I miss him terribly. I see something that reminds me of him. Same with Molly. If I come across her old collar or whatever, it just kind of sets that off. But one thing I wanted to ask you about is compound grief. In my own life, my father passed, and then not even a year later, my father-in-law passed. And I know that that happens for a lot of people where we just have continual losses in our lives. And it seems like you can't really get a break from that grief because you're processing one. And what is your perspective as a psychologist on that?
It's a really, really good question. It's individualized in terms of like what to do about that because there's so many factors that impact it, including the fact that we live in a capitalistic society that does not give two fucks about people needing time to process emotions. So like if I had a client who worked for a job where they were able to take time off, we would use that time off to process the grief and then start to try to like integrate the grief into their life and slowly get them to start doing basic things um, that they were doing prior to the loss. And when I say process the grief, like that is truly such a nondescriptive, vague term because it again looks so different. For some people, that is going and visiting places that they went with that person or pet or what have you, or it's crying or screaming or writing letters, or for me when I lost Ada, my dog, back in September, it was creating a ton of art, buying a shit ton of jewelry that memorialized her, and getting tattoos. And I do actually think this whole hair thing that's happening, I've slowly been cutting off more and more of my hair. And then the other day I was like, I'm gonna bleach my hair. And I like that's it's been 7 months now since she died. And like the grief is just it rolls, but like because I had to go back to work, like I it has to go into a container sometimes. But so like let's I think for people who where there's continued losses and life doesn't stop for them, life can't stop for them. Um it it's so context dependent. Um and I think this is part of me being autistic. I'm very super detail oriented, so it's hard for me to make generalizations. Um but with compound grief, I would say facing it is really important. Like turning towards it and listening to it. Because as a parts therapist, I'm going to treat grief as a part or as parts because there might be multiple grieving parts. So turning
Yeah.
towards them and asking them, like, what do you need from me? Um, and it sounds to a lot of people who aren't familiar with parts work or who aren't used to thinking of themselves in parts, it sounds they describe it as like, oh, you're talking to like multiple personalities, which I mean, some people do have DID and parts work works well for them, but like conceptualizing emotions or experiences as parts can be helpful because it kind of creates more of a structure around them and allows us to interact with them a little bit more clearly rather than just saying like anxiety, like
Like a
instead
broad,
of instead of anxiety, we have an anxious part related to this. So instead
sure.
of grief, we have grieving parts related to these experiences. What do each of these grieving parts need? And can we meet the needs of those parts? And if not, what do we do? And it's the way I work with clients around these types of things is I try to help them develop a relationship with these parts as if they're people. So, I mean, what do you do
Yeah.
with a friend, a loved one who's grieving, and you ask them what they need, and you realize you can't give that to them? You're honest, you tell them that. I hear you. I know you need this. You deserve this. I want to give this to you. Currently, I do not have the capacity to. I am going to make a plan to try to give this to you at some point in the future. And with parts, oftentimes that even just going through that process, it helps them kind of like things become a little bit less intense. The grief doesn't go away. We don't forget that we've lost whatever whoever it is that we've lost, but it's not like consuming us. Now, what I something else I'll say is there are days where you have to let it consume you. You have to.
Sure.
And there are some days where you don't have a choice. Um, and
Right.
it's
Like
just
a
kind
wave,
of
it swallows you whole.
yes, it is. And I work so almost I mean all of my clients are experiencing grief in some form, be it loss of a family member, uh partner, loss of health, loss of expectation of what they thought their life would look like. Um and I talk to them about how like yes, while we need to be very aware of all of the systems that are at play in at least the United States that prevent us from being able to slow down and give empathy to ourselves and compassion to
Mhm.
ourselves. We there's always a point where we have to make a decision about like what system are we giving into? Are we giving into our own system, which needs love and care and compassion and attention, or are we giving into the systems of society? And if we don't have a choice and we have to self-abandon, can we at least pause and explain to our parts that we have no choice but to self-abandon in order to survive? And then plan to repair with them at a point where we get a break. Um, yeah, sorry, I know that like that's not like, a super clear answer about managing compound grief. I am sure other like grief specialists have like manualized approaches to compound grief.
Yeah.
Rarely in my experience as a therapist does anything manualized actually end up working it the way the manual says it's supposed to because life
Right.
occurs and we have to be flexible. Um,
Sure.
but yeah, I mean, is as cliche as it is, with grief, compound grief, prolonged grief, which is just grief, um, we turn towards it and we roll with it. And we try to do the best we can with what we have. And I think a crucial part of that is being honest with ourselves. And that's hard to do when you're feeling a tremendous amount of pain because it is we experience emotional pain as physical pain. It's
Right.
so like this loss of this person, like, yeah, someone or something no longer being there physically. Our brains don't really understand what to do with that information because the way that our brains understand the world is through presence. The physical presence of things. The mental maps we have are based on the physical presence of the world around us.
Yes.
Yes. And so when something is removed, it's almost as if like if the brain were a computer, like there's you rip out a chunk of code and you're expecting it to function the same. And it's like that is not how that works. And unfortunately, at least in the United States, society does not care. And I think that's another thing with grief too, is it's so isolating. Um, but then also sometimes we do need to be alone with our grief because that's what's required. As you can tell
Right.
from my answer to your question, it's complicated.
It is complicated. And I think that's kind of what we need to talk about is, you know, I remember that for me going back to work was best for me because it was a distraction. Because I knew when I was alone and I was sitting at home, I was paralyzed essentially. There was nothing that I could do. I was trying to escape that sadness because I didn't want to constantly be reminded that he's not here anymore. He's not here and you can't talk to him. And then there was that added whatever issue that was there, it cannot be resolved now because you can't sit down and talk about it because he's gone. Um, but in that, it, going back to work was not great either. I remember being trying to help a boss, a higher up with a project, and there was some communication issues, and he got very frustrated and whatever. His behavior was a little bit whatever, it was fine. I was very upset in the moment, and you kind of already like when you're in grief, you're kind of already at a nine, I think, on a daily basis. And I was able to hold it off, but by the time I got in the car at 5 o'clock, I was just like I cried the whole way home because it was just like that one little thing, that one little altercation was like the straw that broke the camel's back. And then another time, I went to a jewelry store to have my wedding ring cleaned, and as part of like this warranty process, you're supposed to come in every month and have it, inspected and cleaned. Well, it had been a couple months because I was deep in my grief, and I was trying to explain to the customer service person why I hadn't been there, and I couldn't even get it out, and I just started bawling right there in the store. It made the poor guy so uncomfortable. But this is grief, if that happened to me, I mean, another time I was in a Hallmark store looking for a card for, my husband for Father's Day. And I was just standing in the Father's Day aisle and just, again, lost it. But this is different. This is a Hallmark store versus a jewelry store. The person came up to me with a box of tissues. Whereas at the jewelry store, the guy was like, I don't know what to do here. So I felt so bad for the guy, Here I am losing it. But I think we all have these moments where it just kind of you're constantly carrying it with you like a backpack, and then all of a sudden it unzips and everything falls out. And
Yeah. I really like that analogy. That's I'm going to use that with some of my clients. Um, that's a really good analogy. Um, yeah, it's true. I mean, like it's with Ada, who was with me for 11 years, and similarly to Molly, like I got Ada when I was like 21. I was a
Yeah.
baby.
Hmm.
And I know like at 21 you think you're an adult, but you're not.
Say
At,
that louder for her.
um, you're really not. It's so interesting. I was like, yeah, and she watched me grow up, and I think about her every day, and I know I'm going to think about her every day, probably forever, because that's I mean, she's just such an important part of me in my life. And but it's so funny, even though I work with grief with my clients so often, and I understand grief, I reach these points where I'm like, yeah, I think I'm good. Like, yeah, I'm going to think about her every day, but I'm probably not going to break down and cry again. And then like, a week later, I walk past her altar and I'm like, like I can't handle
Yeah.
it. Or I see a fucking TikTok video of someone. Oh my, this is incredible. I feel like you'll really appreciate this. I watched a TikTok yesterday and I really appreciate this person sharing this, but like I'm just like, damn it, I didn't want to cry at 9 a.m. on a freaking Thursday. But her dog, her soul dog, had cancer and was dying, and they were approaching the
Oh,
point of needing to euthanize the dog. But then I think her husband got into an accident or something really horrible happened medically. And so the woman who's telling the story, her mom had to come down to help take care of the dog while the woman was in the hospital, like waiting to find out news about her husband. And apparently, suddenly the dog's symptoms just kind of like disappeared. Like it no longer needed the support that it had. It had a second wind, but like more of a second wind than is normal. It lasted for a few weeks until the husband was able to come home, I believe, and he turns out he was okay. Um, and they did end up having to euthanize the dog because of course it was still sick, but but then so she is telling the story of how this one morning she's driving to work and sees like a sign for a psychic. And she purposely took off her wedding ring and like covered all her tattoos because she had a tattoo of her dog, and she didn't want the psychic to know anything about her. She was distrusting, but something was
that's
like kind of
reasonable.
pulling her. Yeah, and she said when she went to meet with the psychic said that there are two, and her soul dog was a male. She said there are two very strong male presences, and I'm gonna cry telling the story. There are two very strong male presences, and they were at a crossroads, and one of them had to make the decision to give up every future life with you so the other could live. And so her soul dog gave up every future life with her so that her husband could live.
Oh my gosh.
I know, and I was like,
I'm gonna cry.
I was like, that's beautiful, but
Yeah.
heartbreaking.
Oh yes. It's so typical of a dog too, right?
So typical of a dog. And it was really interesting the timing of the story because the other day I've been going through some medication withdrawal, just trying to get off some meds, and so my moods have been really nuts. Also, April is a traumaversary month for me. So it's just been a rough time. So my husband doesn't fight with me. My husband doesn't fight. He's such a sweetheart. I fight with him. But I've been getting very mad at him lately and just really activated and elevated. And one day I just like went and laid in bed and I had this thought of like, and this is like I love my husband. He's my best friend and he's my person.
Mhm.
But I had this thought of like I would literally give anything to have Ada back
Yeah.
because like I miss so badly being able to fall apart and have a bad day and she's just there. Like honestly, she probably doesn't even know what's going on. But she's just there. And it's like it was us against the world. Um
They
and
know
like I
so
would
much more than. than we give them credit for. She does
That's very
know.
yeah. But I was in the moment, I was in such emotional distress that I thought like I would give up ever having met my husband if it meant getting to spend the rest of my life with Ada. But
Yeah,
I don't think many people, I think people who have dogs understand that, but I think people who don't have dogs and have never lost a dog or a pet don't understand like in this moment of grief, I'm essentially not bargaining with the universe because I'm not actually trying to give up my husband, but like part of me is kind of bargaining.
right.
Like I would sacrifice this relationship if I just got to have Ada for the rest of my life, and I would be fine if it was just us. And we went and lived in a cabin in the woods and just lived up our entire lives together. Like so it was really interesting like to have that thought, that experience, and then a day or two later hear this video on TikTok about this woman sharing this experience. And it was funny because a lot of people are very skeptical about those types of experiences and whether or not that exists. But for me, it just immediately resonated as like a, of course, of
Right.
course your soul dog made that choice. Because like you said, that's such a dog thing to do. Um,
Yeah. They are so spiritually evolved and advanced, like more so than humans.
yeah.
And honestly, I could see why you felt the way you did because I really literally feel like pets are a little part of heaven. They show us what our souls are kind of striving for. That selfless, they're not angry. I had a animal communicator talk with my current dog Waffles, who he was a rescue, and I asked her if I could find out about the first part of his life because I knew it wasn't good. He can be a little, like, he doesn't like his back area doesn't like to be pet. He obviously has some sort of trauma from the beginning part of his life. And the animal communicator said to me, he's going to tell you a little bit. He said he's willing to share a little bit, but that he doesn't want you to carry that with you. He doesn't want to focus on the past. He's living his best life now. And I think it was such a good reminder that as humans, we are constantly looking back at tragic things that have happened in our past, like experiences that we've had in our childhood, where that we just keep acquiring more and more pain and baggage. And it's just incredible that they're like, it happened and it sucked at the time, but I'm here now. And it's like I said, I can see why you would want to trade that because they bring so much love and energy that just a human is incapable of. As much as we want to love somebody, we all have our flaws. Every human has a flaw,
Yeah.
you know. But the thing about loss is it's just and going back to what you said earlier about the physical presence, the human mind has difficulty with that. Um, it's really what it is. It's a loss of connection. And I think that even me, like being in a more spiritual area of my life, and having that, I do still have a connection with my father. Um, would I give anything in the world to be able to give him a hug again, feel his great big squeeze? Absolutely. Would I love to bury my face in Molly's fur again? Yes. But the beautiful thing is, you know, we have that connection with them uh, spiritually. In spirit, they are with us, um, and uh, whether we communicate them through with them through a psychic or we're able to get to a point where we can meditate and feel them with us. Um, in my own journey, I was able to, communicate with my dad and get to a point of forgiveness. And those issues that we had were able to be resolved. Um, Molly has come to me in dreams and just sat down at my feet. And I took that as she's with you. And if you're willing to speak about your own um, processing of grief of Ada, um, you know, we worked on some things together with that. Are you willing to speak about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I mean, initially the form it took, so I had about a week's notice, um, before we had to have Ada euthanized. She was old, her back legs were going. She was like a shepherd boxer pit bull mix, and just a really unique combination to still have hip and back issues. Even though she was a mutt. She looked like a German shepherd though. But it I like it's looking back now at pictures of her, even from like January of 2025, because she died in September of 2025. I'm like, wow, she was ready to go. Like, just the life had left her eyes. And
Hmm.
she just like yeah, and I mean, you're living it. So like I was so focused on just trying to like address all of her health issues that were popping up that like I did not stop to think maybe it's time. Like in I thought I was like at the time I thought I was. I thought I didn't think I was doing the thing a lot of pet owners do where we wait until it's not too late, but we wait until it's obvious how much pain they're in. But she ended up injuring herself, and then actually like I I kind of had to like shove it out of my mind because I had MJ's wedding, and I had dropped Ada off at a boarding facility, and the timing of this was wild. Normally she would have gone to her vet to get boarded, which means they would have been able to call me and tell me this is what needs to be done to figure out what's going on with her based on how she injured herself. But they were going through renovations and their large kennels were closed. So she had to go to a
Hmm.
groomer.
Oh.
And they didn't have any, and I didn't realize how bad she was until I tried to get her to the groomer and she couldn't walk. I had to use a towel to lift her back and up. She's 85-pound dog. So we
Hmm.
dropped her off, and like looking back, I feel like it was really inhumane to leave her there, but also like I was going to my best friend's wedding where I was speaking in it, and like it was an unideal time for my dog to injure herself, and so and then I come back, we pick her up Monday. The kennel, like the groomer says to me, "You're like they handled it very well. They very kindly essentially said like she can't come back. Like she needs to see like a specialist. Like she can't walk. Um, and this is like a dog who loved running and being outside. And so like I had to go get a towel and like put it under her and carry her. And I've got POTS and it's the summer. And so like I'm having a hard time getting her out. And so like we were able to get a harness around her where my husband could lift her. And I just like I took a picture of it because it was funny because she was just kind of hanging out there like okay. And then my husband was kind of just like this is a ridiculous situation. But after I took the picture and we got her in the car, I got in the car and I sat down and I was like, we have to put her down. Like,
Yeah. But I think that that's you get to that point
yeah,
and you weren't at that point yet. I
no,
think that the timing is falls where it does, you know, and on some level you knew when like this is it.
it was so weird how I am not a certain person. like as you can tell with the question you asked me earlier about compound grief, my answers require significant explanation. I took a look at her and beyond a shadow of a doubt knew that's it. Like, this is her time.
Yeah.
Um, so I called, I was not going to have her euthanized at the vet. She fucking hated the vet. So I got on like the local Facebook page and asked for recommendations, and I called the company and they're like, we can come out on Tuesday or Saturday. And it was Monday. And I was like, not ready to say bye tomorrow. Like, can't
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
So we took her to the vet, loaded her up on as many pain meds as humanly possible, and I spent the rest of the week with her. Looking back, I do wish I would have chosen Tuesday. Um, because she was
Yeah.
in just excruciating pain, like could barely sleep. Like wasn't going to like couldn't physically go to the bathroom anymore. Something must have happened with her like bladder.
Mm.
And so like I had a week to prepare and I remember calling. It was so interesting. The person I adopted her with, he and I had a very, very complex, painful relationship. But it was so interesting the way in which my brain reverted back to the way it used to work when we were very close, which was he always had answers. Like if there was a problem, I always went to him for answers. And I called him and he he was trying to be comforting. He really was. In the way that he knew how. And he said, like, you know, it's not a tragedy. She lived a long life. But I was like, it is a tragedy. Like,
It's tragic to see them go through that.
yeah, I mean, when it's tragic that she can't live forever. Like, that is tragic to me.
Yes, of
That is
course.
that will forever be a tragedy to me. It doesn't matter that if she lived my entire life with me, that would defy science. It's tragic. And it gets to be tragic. And it took me a while to accept that you know what? She didn't have to die tragically or get hit by a car or have something crazy happen for it to feel tragic to me. Um,
Yeah.
so that was a big part of the grieving process for me too, was letting myself feel like a simple loss was tragic. Um, and so in the weeks after she died, I like I became obsessed with memorializing her. Um, I started creating a whole bunch of different art pieces, looking into all of the different like things I could do to memorialize her, like all the different companies out there that help you memorialize your dog, like getting an ink like like not the press ink paw prints. We tried to get those, but I could never get a good one. But like sending this company a picture of the paw print imprint that the crematorium sent me and a picture of her nose, and they printed out like ink, nose and paw print, and then like buying several different urns, like for her ashes and her fur, and buying like symbolism, like I have a raven statue and like a hummingbird and all this stuff like that symbolizes her, combined with all these pictures of her and us and these pieces of art that I made dedicated to her. And then I spent hundreds and hundreds of dollars on, like I said, jewelry and tattoos, and I'm not even done getting tattoos dedicated to her. It, but like, it's just like, I can tell that there are parts of me that are desperately trying to keep her alive. And it's not because I haven't accepted that she's gone. It's my way of staying connected to her. It's that's and I will continue to do that for as long as I need to. And
Right.
that's fine. But I also something that I really regretted after she died was how much my chronic illness impacted my ability to give her the life I wanted to give her, which is where a lot of my guilt and regret lie. Um, which I'm okay having guilt, because I think guilt is a normal part of grief, and what if is a normal part of grief. And so being practical about it, my what if included, all right, had I been more physically fit and taking better care of my chronic illness, I would have been able to go outside with her more and all of this. So then I started working with um Anne, our naturopathic doctor, and Gina, our therapeutic wellness specialist. And that's helped me a lot. And then I did Reiki with Jen and I did the wellness hypnotherapy with you. Um, and it was interesting. I actually quit therapy before I ever had a chance to process it with my therapist at the time because I think I was just so after 13 years of being in therapy, I was so done talking to therapists about my feelings, which don't get me wrong, I'm a therapist. I find therapy very powerful. But there was just something about this loss that therapy was not going to be able to touch. Um and that doesn't mean there aren't certain types of therapy that maybe could have helped if the therapist was integrating other things, but I was like, this goes deeper than what therapy gets at. Because therapy is it's emotional, it's psychological, it's somatic. Most therapists are not trained to do spiritual work. And that's what it was. It wasn't just a physical loss, it was a spiritual loss. Um, like not actually, because I don't really think spiritual loss is necessarily a thing because of the way the spirit world works, but like in the way spirit works.
Your
But like,
spiritual connection on this earth was a loss.
yes, yes. And so doing Reiki with Jen was really helpful. And I think I talked about that before. Just like, I think it, it helped clear up, um, and kind of shift around some energy so that I could figure out what needed to be addressed. And I think with you, it was really, I mean, I'm really, I have really vivid imagination and I can see images in my mind very well. It was just so, I don't even know how to describe it. It was so, it felt like I was like wrapped in a cocoon when we did our sessions, the way that you guided me through connecting with certain emotions and also like allowing Ada to be a part of the imagery. Um,
Yeah.
and then I think even just conversations we had about like you had mentioned like extending an invitation to her to like be present in my dreams, like if she'd like to visit. Um and so like that's just become a regular part of my practice. Like before I go to bed, like just letting her know like if she wants to visit me, she's always welcome, but I don't expect her to. Like who knows what she's doing? She might be busy doing other stuff. But she actually recently the past couple nights she did show up in my dreams. It was wonderful. I always love seeing her.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I'm like if you want to go more in depth about how you went about setting up the wellness hypnotherapy for grief,
Yeah.
that'd be great.
So what we did is we worked with your personal sanctuary. You have a place. I don't recall if it's real or imaginary, but it doesn't really, in the sake of conversation, doesn't really matter. But we created that personal sanctuary for you to go to anytime you're feeling any kind of stress. And we invited Ada to that space and where she can sit with you. And I don't know if you're comfortable with sharing this sanctuary, but just in general, it's a foresty, nature-esque kind of place with a river flowing nearby or a creek. And so the sound of water is very peaceful and calming for you. Um, and while you're in this space, we were able to draw a golden thread between your heart and hers. And it's a solid thread that can never be broken, and that represents your connection forever. And you mentioned earlier that this other dog was willing to give up future lives, and it's possible that you and Ada will share several lives together. Um, but whether that comes to fruition in this life or not, you can always go back to this place and be with her. And I love that you brought up that you invited her into your dreams and that she's honoring your wishes, because by doing so, she's also sending the message back to you that you were shown that we are connected, and now I'm showing you that it's true. This is real. I am connected to you and I'm with you. So
Thanks for making me
it's
cry,
beautiful.
Allie.
I'm sorry. I think tears are good.
They are. No, they are. I therapists will joke that like when we have a session where our clients cry, we're like secretly like, yes, we did it. We got them to cry. I was very scared to do hypnosis because I hate anything that makes me feel out of control. But I remember asking MJ about it because I think MJ had tried it before I had, and MJ's like, actually, like I felt more in control. And I was like, what? And I did, but I felt it was this weird like combination between feeling more relaxed than I've ever felt before while also feeling more in control than I've ever felt before, which is wild for someone with significant trauma because I equate feeling in control with significant nervous system activation. And
Mm-hmm.
like my body has to be on to feel in control. But you were able to create an environment in like a physical environment, but like between us where I felt so calm and so free to feel whatever it is that my brain or body not, needed to feel, while also feeling like I could give full consent and I had full autonomy. Which I think it just speaks volumes to your energy and your level of empathy and warmth that you bring with you everywhere, always. Um,
Thank you.
but yeah, like just to put a little plug in here, like see Allie for wellness hypnotherapy. I love it. It's oh my gosh, it's so good. It's so good. It's helped me so much. And I think we did like 3 sessions related to grief, and they months and months ago, and it still helps. Like I still have that imagery that comes to me. I still have like the knowledge of that connection with Ada. It's not even it's not knowledge. It's like knowledge. Like I feel it. And it's you helped me validate that that feeling is real and that it will always be there. Um yeah, I'm no longer like I think many people, when they lose someone or lose a pet, there's a lot of fear around what happens when I forget what they looked like or sounded like or their mannerisms. It's valid. All of those are completely valid fears.
Of course.
Um, that is a part of grief, and it there's that's its own kind of grief in and of itself. And with the work we did together, I don't worry about that with Ada because I'm like if I do forget certain things about her, all I have to do is like sit and I feel her. So even if I don't remember physical attributes or certain memories, that doesn't matter because she's still there. And we're still connected. Um, so yeah, the wellness hypnotherapy really helped me with that a lot. I think that was probably the most instrumental like practice that I did that helped me move through grief.
Yeah. Well, because in this case, like two things are happening, right? Like, because we're working with the human mind, but then we're also working with the spiritual work. And now wellness hypnotherapy typically is not spiritual. It's usually just dealing with the subconscious. But with your permission, we did add a spiritual aspect in there. Um, but mostly when we're doing wellness hypnotherapy, we're always creating that personal sanctuary. Um, and, you know, so the reason why you felt like you had more control is because word versus your conscious everyday you personality has created this level of protection and needing that control. We're able to get you to a relaxed state where that kind of relaxes and your true subconscious self comes forward. And that's why you were able to be able to put that down, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and also, your subconscious has those built-in boundaries anyway. Your mind and your subconscious are not going to let certain things happen to you. So this is a common concern is people are afraid, like in hypnosis in general, that they're going to lose control. But it's like you said, you have more control because your boundaries are like deeply rooted within you.
Mhm.
That that belief that you have to be in constant control, that is more of the conscious thinking, or it's also been called the ego. You know,
Mhm.
this is this is what you built up based on your life experiences. You know, same for me. I have my own things that I feel like I need to be in control of for my own protection and whatnot. Um, but in hypnosis, those things are able to pull back, and that's where the real healing comes in and is helpful.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I really enjoy doing that. Or I really enjoyed doing those sessions with you, and I know we have talked about doing more together. We also did the past life regression, which I just realized this at the time. I think you asked me if anyone back then was like in the past life I was able to connect to was present currently, and I was able to identify a couple people. I don't
Yeah.
know that if I said that Ada was there. But I do think that the dog that was present
Okay.
in that past life was Ada. Um, it's
And I
really
don't recall if I asked you because it's interesting when I do hypnosis for people, particularly past life regression and those other kind of, I am also in trance, so I have a very difficult time recalling a lot of sessions because of
yeah.
that. Um, but I do remember now that there was a dog there, and the thought that came across my mind is, I wonder if this is Ada, but I don't remember if I had asked you that or not.
I don't remember either. I do know you asked the general question of like, is there anybody back then that's been present in your life this lifetime? Um, and I think I focused more on the people as opposed to like Ada, but like when I think back to what that presence felt like when we were going through that life, it
Yeah.
very much so felt like Ada. Um, and it's funny because in my mind I'm like it wasn't Ada because that wasn't the dog's name. I don't remember the dog's name, but like it was the essence of,
Oh yeah.
you know, yeah.
Well, because I
So
mean,
interesting.
in this past life, you weren't Ollie either.
Yeah,
You were a Greek man, I believe, I think.
it's something like
Something
that.
like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Um,
It was yeah, it was so interesting. And it was just I know now we're not talking about grief, but the that past life regression helped me feel so much less anxious about so many things about my current life. It was wild because I was like, "Oh, maybe that's like why I'm experiencing that or like I don't have to worry about that in this lifetime because I've already experienced it or I'm going to experience it another one." So interesting. So interesting.
yeah, that's what I love about it is it continues to heal. And in the moment we think, well, this doesn't really resonate, it doesn't make any sense right now. But yeah, as we keep moving forward, we're able to connect those dots. And, even in my own life, I had a past life as a French wealthy, the daughter of a wealthy royal person. He wasn't a king. I think he was a duke or something. I don't know all the structure, but I had a difficult mother in that life, and I was constantly wanting to get away. In that life, I was like doing everything I could to try to run away. And it's interesting how it has themes in my current life of how like sometimes I try to avoid pain. I try to avoid fear. I'm a fearful, avoidant, personality type. So this is back then it made no sense to me. I was just like in that past life, I was just like trying to get away from my mom and I wanted to spend time with my horse. And but now it's like, okay, and this was 3 years ago. So, you know, and there was probably things in that past life that still haven't made a connection yet, but they will.
Yeah.
And that's the great thing about it, and how it, our spirit guides, the universe, whatever you want to call it, is constantly holding us and giving us what we need when we need it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's it helps. And like you said, it continues to unfold for me. Like I continue to make connections and realizations. And it's so funny because I remember when we were doing it, I kept being like, I feel like I'm doing this wrong. Like I said like 100 times. And you're like, no, like it's just keep going with it. And now that I look back on it, I'm like, it all makes so much sense. And it feels right. Like in the moment it didn't. It felt like I was just coming up with random stuff, but now it feels integrated um into like who I am now and my understanding of me. Um yeah, sorry, I kind of derailed us there.
No, that's okay. I was on that train because I'll talk about it all day long. Maybe we can do another podcast about all the different kinds of sessions. So,
Yes, we should. That's I yeah, I think you offer such a um type unique types of service and that like I feel like you have the same abilities and warmth of like a very compassionate therapist while also integrating a lot of knowledge about spirit world and like spirituality. Um and like yeah, everything of the spirit realm and I don't I you just your ability to integrate all of it is remarkable and it's something that frankly like I said like therapy was very helpful for me, but it was something that was missing from therapy for me. Um
yeah.
so it's the services you offer are definitely very like they're like the next thing that I needed. And like that's yeah. I'm so excited to continue to do like sessions with you. They're so cool.
Oh, thank you. Oh, I love it. I'm
Yeah.
glad they've been helpful for you because, and that's actually what got me into this. Same thing, therapy had gotten me so far in some things, and it was like if I have to, I always say it got me 98% of the way there. But there was just this missing piece that just was never, it was never going to be fixed. And I could see it. I could see the light at the end of the tunnel, but I could not get there. And that's what hypnosis did for me. And afterwards, I was like, well, the rest of the world needs this. So I found it.
The rest of the world does need it. Specifically from you. And that's not just me trying to plug Balance and Birch. Like Allie, like I think you have such a special gift. Um I it's remarkable. Um yeah, when anytime I refer clients to you, I always explain like how just your ability just to exist and like give off safety, you know? Again, I'm bad at words, but like you feel safe. And that's a big deal, I think, for a lot of people who haven't felt super safe in their lives.
Oh, well, I'm going to cry because that that is my goal. I actually have a sign on my wall that says "You're safe here."
Oh, I love that. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Well, you have succeeded. I can tell you that for sure. Um,
Oh.
yeah. But yeah, is there anything else related to grief that you had wanted to talk about today that we didn't haven't talked about yet?
No, I think it was very productive, and grief is so complex, and it's I don't think we close the door on it and say, "Okay, I'm done." I think like I said, it's the backpack that we're constantly carrying, and we're always adding new stuff to that backpack, you know. And I think it's also okay to let ourselves off the hook and, you know, let ourselves grieve when we need to grieve. You know, if if I'm going to have a moment for my dad that passed away, 11 years ago, I'm going to have on for many years. You know, I still very much miss her. I have a little area in my closet with her picture and her urn, and I don't always look at it, but sometimes I do, and it just hits me in the right day, and it's just like, you know, but the beautiful thing is, you know, I firmly believe that if we're lucky, our dogs do get to come back to us in this life. And I believe that that's what Waffles is for me. You know, we have such an incredible connection. Getting him was, I was actually looking for another dog for my family, for a family member. I was on a rescue site and I looked at his picture and I was like, that's my dog. And I was like, we don't need another dog. But I was like, that's my dog. And it's interesting when we set up the meet and greet, he was like pulling on the lead from the foster parents. And he ran up to me like it was like a long lost meeting. So if that's not your confirmation, I just know that when we're ready, timing is right, they do come back to us.
Yeah, I definitely believe that. I definitely believe that. Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad that you have waffles.
Me too. He's a he's the best.
Well, thank you so much for meeting today. And sharing as much as you did and letting me share about my experiences as well.